Okay, so this is just a quick overview of the dice roll project, which we will be working on in the next tutorial. Basically, there's a button called roll dice, and when the user clicks on it, we just roll the dice. There's probably no need for us to have logs out to the console, but just so we, as the developers of this dice, can just be satisfied that, whatever result we're getting is being successfully printed into the dice there. Okay, so that's awesome. That's what we have to look forward to in the next tutorial. I'll just close out down the console and refresh and just roll the dice a few more times. So we get a 2, a 1 again, a 3, a 4, a 1, any 5s and 6s. There we go. Okay, great. So this is what we'll be working on in the next tutorial. It brings together everything we've learned so far, where we can detect for a user click, we can perform some logic in our script file, and then take the result of whatever the function is and just print it here in the dice. So I'll see you in the next tutorial where we'll code this up together. Hi everyone and welcome back. Okay, in this tutorial we're going to code up the dice roll. What we're going to do is write the HTML first, so we will create a button on the web page. We'll also create a div. The div will actually contain the result of the dice roll. Then we'll write our JavaScript logic, and then we'll go on and do the CSS. So, first thing we need to do is in our index.html page, let's make a button. So I'm going to say button, and I'm going to say roll the dice. So just save. Just want to have a look at the browser, and we have roll the dice. That's awesome. Above it, I want to make a div, and this div is actually going to contain the result. So I'm going to give it an ID. We'll say ID is equal to dice container. The button, I also want to give that an ID, and the ID will just be of button. That's awesome. Now we want to write up our JavaScript code. So this project is about the dice roll. Let's just create some space here. So what I want to do is I want to say let button be equal to document.get element by ID, and just pass in the ID of button. So that gets us a reference to this button here. Just to make sure we've gotten the button, I'm just going to quickly say console.log button, and then hopefully we see a button in the console. Okay, that's awesome. But we don't want to log the button out to the console. What we actually want to do is we want to run some code when the user clicks on the button. So rather than logging out the button, what we're going to do is we're going to add an event listener to it. So we're going to say button dot add event listener, and when the user clicks on this button, so we're going to listen out for a click event, we're going to run some code. So we have our parentheses, our little arrow and chevron to make an arrow function. And now what we're going to do is when the user clicks on the button, we're just going to log out clicked. The reason I'm doing this step by step is just so it's easier than writing out all the code, and if it doesn't work, we're trying to troubleshoot and find out where we went wrong. So we've added the button. We've used the document object model to grab it, okay, because remember the button has an ID. Button has an ID of button. So we said document.getElementById by ID button. We stored it in the button variable. On button, we've added an event listener. When the user clicks the button, we're going to run some code, okay? In this case, we're just going to run button clicked. Clicked, that's awesome. But now we want to take it a step further. We don't want to log out clicked to the console. What we want to do is we actually want to generate a random number. So we'll say let result be equal to, and what we can do is we can just say mat.random, parentheses, because we're calling or invoking a method, and then what we'll do is we'll log out the result of that to the console. So now when the user clicks on the button, we're going to generate a random number using the inbuilt mat object in JavaScript and calling the .random method on it. Well, you say dot to access the method. It's not called .random, it's called random, but you know what I mean. So if we click here now, we get a random number. So that's really good, but we're not getting a number between 1 and 6. So really what we want to do is we want to take mat.random and multiply that by 6. So let's do that. So now if we do that, if we save and refresh, we're getting a little bit closer. We're getting these random numbers, but the problem is there's like a decimal place. So we want to get rid of that. Let's throw away everything after the decimal place by wrapping mat.random times 6 around or into mat.floor. So what we're doing here is mat.floor is basically being passed in this value. We're passing in mat.random, a random number between 0 and 0.999 continuous times 6. We're passing it into mat.floor, and what this will do is give us a number between 0 and 5. Remember, when you use the .floor method, it throws away everything after the decimal place. So for example, 4.25 would now be 4, or 3.2 would be 3, okay? So now we're getting a number between 0 and 5. So if I save and refresh, and now I click on the roll the dice, we get 4, 3, 2, 0, 1, any 5s? Weird. There we go. Geez, that took quite a few rolls. Okay. Now, we don't want a number between 0 and 5, do we? We want a number between 1 and 6. So at the end here, after the closing parentheses, just add 1. And now what we're going to do is we're going to get a number between 1 and 6. Okay? So let's now save and refresh once again. And now we're getting 5, 6, 3. Keep rolling till we get a 1. There we go. Awesome. Okay. So we're getting there. We now have a button when the user clicks on it, we're getting a dice roll. But instead of logging that out to the console, what we want to do is we want to put the number inside of the div, the div with the ID of dice container. So let's grab the dice container from the document object model. So we can say let dice container be equal to document.get element by ID, and let's pass in our ID, and we called it dice container. So if I just copy that over and paste in there, we now have got the dice container. But what we want to do is let's actually get the dice container, and what we want to do is we want to set the inner HTML, the inner text, I apologize, change the inner text to be whatever the result was. So previously we were logging the result out to the console. Now we're not doing that. We're taking whatever number we get, a number between 1 and 6, and we're taking the dice container and we're accessing the inner text, and we are changing that, the value, and assigning it the value of a result. So what we're doing here is we are assigning the result of the dice roll and basically putting that into the inner text, setting the inner text of the div, okay? So now, if I say refresh, we're going to get our dice. We get 6, 3, 1, awesome. Okay, so it doesn't look very impressive, so let's very quickly just add some CSS styling to it. So for the dice container, what we can do is just apply some basic styling. So that was an ID, wasn't it? Yeah, okay. So what we'll do is we'll just say hashtag, and let's just give this a width of 200 pixels, a height of 200 pixels, and I want to give it a border of 2 pixels, solid black. I'm going to stop there and just have a look, see how this looks. Okay, so we have our border, that's good. Let's give it a bit of a border radius. I think that would look nice. So we'll just say border radius. We'll say 15%. Let me just save and refresh. Okay, that looks way better. It kind of looks like a dice now. Okay, the text was very small. So why don't we give the font size, let's do 150 pixels. And let's have a look to see how that looks. So if I refresh, so we get, okay, it's looking better. I'd like to center that a bit more. So why don't we just give a decent amount of padding here. So let's just say padding of, we'll be bold, we'll give a full 50 pixels. So now if we refresh, 1, 6, okay, it's maybe too much padding. I don't know, let's just do 25. Good enough. Okay. Then what we want to do is just maybe align the text. So let's say text align center. So let's say text align center. Let's have a look here now. We're getting closer every time. Okay, that's awesome. I'm happy with that. The button though needs a bit of love, and then we'll end the tutorial. So the button has an ID of button. So we'll say hashtag button. And what do we want to do with the button? Well, let's just give it a width. And we'll give it a width of maybe 50 pixels. We'll give it a height. Tell you what, no, we'll give it a width of like maybe, we'll be really bold. We'll do 200 pixels and a height of maybe 50 pixels. Let's see how that looks. It's probably gonna look horrendous. It doesn't look too bad. Okay. What else can we do? We'll give it a tiny bit of border radius. I love attention to detail. So border radius, we'll say 5%. Let's just have a look. You can barely see it. Okay. And then what we'll do is maybe we will give the background color a nice pink. So we'll say background color. You know what? We'll just do aqua. We don't really have a lot of time for styling. This is a JavaScript course. Okay, doesn't look too bad. I actually like that. And then lastly, let's just maybe bold the font weight. So we'll say font weight is maybe bold. And I'm not sure if a white color will suit the text, but let's just do it. We'll say white. And you could do a text transform uppercase if you wanted to make it uppercase. So let's have a look here now. Ooh, you can barely see the text. Also, maybe a bit of margin. We'll just quickly move that away from everything. Just do 20 pixels, see how that looks. You know what? Oh God, I'm going to get into styling issues here. What do I want? Aqua was good. I don't know, let's have a look at pink. Maybe it's softer on the eye. Okay, that's all right. So basically, we have our dice roll, and if you click, we roll the dice. Okay, awesome. Should I leave that tutorial there, or am I gonna stress over? Let's do aquamarine. All right, I'm about to end the tutorial. Give me 1 second. Oh. You know what? Let's just make that black and have a look. Promise I'll end the tutorial here. Oh, that's much better. Awesome. All right, I'm happy now. Okay, so guys, that's how we can do a dice roll in JavaScript. When the user clicks on the dice, what we do is we just get a random number between 1 and 6, and we have it in the dice here. What we could do in the next tutorial is we could create another dice, and the user can click the dice, and then the user can roll the dice. Sorry, I said click a dice. The user will roll a dice, the computer will roll a dice, and then we can check to see who won by doing some sort of comparison. So we'll do that in the next tutorial. The key point for this tutorial is that what we did was essentially we just on the button added an event listener. We generate a random number between 1 and 6. What we do is we take our div and just set the inner text of that, and that was really all the JavaScript. It was quite limited. Really, we spent more time on the styling, but you can see here that we've built a very basic project. So in the next tutorial, we'll write some functionalities so that the computer has to pick a random number and then roll the dice, and then we'll do a comparison to see who won. Okay, awesome. Thank you for your attention. I'll see you in the next tutorial. Hello everyone and welcome back. Okay, in this tutorial what we're going to do is we're going to expand on what we did in the last tutorial. It was just a very basic tutorial, a very basic dice roll project just to get us started bringing together HTML, CSS and JavaScript. What I want to do in this tutorial is add to our dice roll tutorial. I want to create another dice, and when we click on it, we check to see if the human won or if the computer won, okay? So that's what we're going to build up to in this tutorial. So there will be 2 dice, we click here to roll the dice, and we check to see who won, okay? So what I'm going to do is, firstly, I'm going to add a second dice container. So I'm just going to copy this code here and paste it. So we have 2 divs with the same ID. That's obviously not good, but let's just refresh. And we see here we have 2 different dice, okay? Next thing I want to do is just put the 2 dice into another div. We'll call it a wrapper or a container, and just apply some styling to get the 2 dice on the same line together, okay? So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to create an opening div and a closing div, and let's just delete and paste, okay? So now what we have is we have our 2 different dice containers. One will be for the human, one will be for the computer inside of a div. Nothing is going to change yet, okay? So now what I want to do is for the wrapper div, we'll give that an ID of maybe div container or a class. So we'll say div, we'll say it has a class of div container. Okay, and then what we want to do is we want to, sorry, dice container. I actually am having coffee. Come on, Dar, wake up your brain. So if you come over here to the CSS file, what I want to do is just get a reference to that. So the div container, div wrapper, we'll put it up here. So what I just want to do is just give that a display of flex, and that should move the two dice onto the same row together, because what I've done is I've taken our two divs, put them inside of a wrapper called div container, and I've now applied styling to have a display of flex. So now if I refresh, we have our two dice together, and that's awesome, but only one dice is working. What I want to do next then is just very briefly, I think we need to give the dice just a bit of margin. They're very close together, so let's do that. We'll do a small bit of margin. Let's do like 10 pixels. 10 pixels is basically nothing, just to get us started. So let's save and refresh. And I think that looks fine. You could do more if you wanted. Okay, awesome. So now basically we have our two dice together, but what we want to do is at some point we're going to get a result. We just want to basically have a little paragraph underneath the div container, but above the dice row, and that'll just basically be the result, okay? So paragraph there, and we can give that an ID of the result paragraph. So ID is equal to the result paragraph. Okay, awesome. So now we've largely set up the HTML. There's nothing else we need here because, you know, we have our first dice, our second dice, our paragraph where the result's going to be, and we have our button here. Now what we want to do is get both the dice to roll. But first we're just going to select the various elements from the page. So for example, I've given this this one here should be dice wrapper, not container. So let's just do wrapper. So dice wrapper, and then this will be the human dice container. So then we've got human dice container and computer dice container. Okay, awesome. Have I broken anything? Let me just refresh. I have, and that is because the styling for dice container no longer exists. So we've got human dice container. So we've got human dice container. I just save and refresh. We got one dice back. And then we're also going to have the computer dice container. So I'll just copy this. Awesome. And just make that computer dice container. One more delete. Let's save and have a look. Okay, awesome. Now our dice roll functionality has now been destroyed, so we got to hook that back up. We're seeing here, you know, cannot set properties of null. We won't worry about that for now. Okay, awesome. So now what do I want to do? Well, in our JavaScript file, okay, we have a reference to dice container, okay, but that's actually now going to be the human dice container. So we'll say let human dice container be equal to human dice container. We also want to get the dice container for the computer as well. Also, because we're not going to be changing the values of these elements we're getting from the document object model, you can use const. So we're going to have const button, const human dice container. We want to use camel case there. We also want to get the computer dice container. So we'll say let computer dice container be equal to document.get element by ID. And what we want to do is just get this human dice container here. So we're just I know this is a bit boring right now. We haven't really gone into JavaScript yet, but I'm just getting all the elements from the document object model. And we also want to get a reference to the result paragraph. So we'll say let the result paragraph be equal to document.get element by ID, and the result paragraph is here. Okay, so let result paragraph be equal to document.get element by ID. Okay, that's awesome. Okay, now what I want to do is, because if you think about it just very briefly, when we click on roll the dice, okay, we're going to be rolling the dice twice, once for the human and once for the computer. So what I want to do is, I actually want to create a function called roll dice. So when the user clicks on the button, we're going to roll the dice once for the human and once for the computer. So let's do that. So what we can do is we'll use a function declaration. We'll say function roll dice. So it's going to be a function that doesn't receive any arguments. And what do we want to do? Well, what we want to do is we want to create a variable. We'll call it rolled dice. We'll say let rolled dice be equal to, and we can just take the logic that we've built here, okay? So what we know, we've done this a few times together now, is to get a random number in JavaScript, we use mat.random, okay? If we multiply it by 6 and then floor it, we're going to get a number, you know, as we saw previously, between 0 and 5, and then we just add 1. So now we get our rolled dice. And what we can do is we can actually basically then return the result. Okay, so we could say return rolled dice. So now what we've done is we've actually created a function that rolled the dice. So what we can do is we can actually delete the logic here, because what we actually want to do is we want to get the human dice roll and the computer dice roll. So we'll say let human dice roll be equal to, and all we need to do is just call or invoke the roll dice function. We also need to do that for the computer, so we can say let computer dice roll be equal to, and once again we're going to call or invoke the roll dice function. So this is great, we're now reusing code. So instead of writing out this logic for both the human and the computer, we just put it into a function and we're calling or invoking that function. Now what we want to do is we want to put the value of the dice rolls into the respective boxes. So dice container, I'm not sure dice container even exists anymore because it's actually the human dice container. So we want to set the text of the human dice container to be equal to the human dice roll. Okay, human dice roll. And we want to do the same for the computer. So the computer's dice container is that div on the page. So to get that, we just say computer dice container. We want to change the inner text of that, and that is going to be changed to the computer dice roll. Okay, so now if I save and refresh, we're getting 2 dice rolls. Okay, so that's pretty awesome, but we're not doing any comparison. So that's what we need to do next. So we know how to do a check in JavaScript. All we essentially need to do is use the if statement. So we can say if, so first we're going to check to see if the human won. So what we can do is we can say if the human dice roll is greater than the computer dice roll, what we know is that the human has won, okay? So what we want to do is we want to get the text of the result paragraph. So we can say result paragraph dot inner text and just change that to be, you can say human or user. I feel if I keep saying human, I sound like I'm not a real person, like I'm a robot, some AI actually creating this video. I'm real, I swear. But we'll just say human one will be consistent, okay? Else if the computer dice roll, this is getting very cramped up. I'm just gonna be very bold and create a lot of space here just so I can see. Okay, else if the computer dice roll is greater than the human dice roll, what we want to do is, once again, we want to grab the result paragraph dot inner text, and just change that to be computer one. And if neither the computer or the user wins, we know it was a draw. So what we can do then is we can just say else result paragraph dot inner text will say it was a draw. Okay, awesome. So now let's just save and refresh. So now if I click the dice, we see computer one, the human one again, computer one, it was a draw. Okay, awesome. And you know, human one is a bit, it really sounds like we're robots typing this. We'll just say user one. I think that's better. Okay, awesome. So guys, I hope you enjoyed that project. What we did is we essentially created two dice rolls. You could create it, you know, position the paragraph in a little bit if you wanted to. But really, in terms of the functionality, how we did it was we created different elements on the page. So for example, our two different divs for the dice where we basically set the inner text. We have the result paragraph, we also set the inner text, and we had a button. On the button, what we did was we essentially grabbed the button using the document object model, and we added an event listener to it. When the user clicks on that button, we create a dice roll variable for both the human and the computer. We just do very basic JavaScript logic inside of our function, and then we return the dice roll for both the human dice roll and the computer dice roll. Then what we did is we just set the inner text of those containers to whatever the result was, and then we just did a check, okay? Basically checking to see who won. So it was a relatively basic tutorial, but we did bring together quite a lot of what we've learned so far. We see here we've created a function, we used the mat object, we grab different elements from the document object model, we then override the text of elements in the document object model using a function, and we do a comparison check to see who won. Okay, so relatively basic tutorial, but we're finally starting to bring together everything that we've learned in the course. So that's awesome. I'll see you in the next one for rock, paper, scissors. Okay, so I'm just going to give you an overview of the rock, paper, scissors game that we'll be making in the next tutorial. Basically with rock, paper, scissors, two people can play it, or you can play it with a computer. Basically how it works is rock will beat scissors, scissors will beat paper, but paper will beat rock. So I've just coded this up. So if I select rock, it's a draw. The computer also chose rock. If I select paper, okay, also chose paper. Let's choose rock, a draw again. I'll keep choosing rock. Okay, we had a win for me there. Okay, I won. Rock beats scissors. It's a draw. A lot of rocks being chosen here. I'll choose scissors. Both choose scissors, and the computer won that one because they chose rock, which beats scissors. Okay, awesome. So I'll show you how to code this up in the next tutorial. Okay, so over the next few tutorials, what we're going to do is we're going to code up a rock, paper, scissors game. So hopefully you've heard of rock, paper, scissors before. I've deleted all of the code from our HTML file, our script file, and our CSS file. So there's nothing on the page. So how we're going to do it is as follows. We're going to write up the basic HTML in this tutorial, and then once we've all that set up, our boilerplate text, you know, the titles and the buttons, etc., or the headings I should say, we are going to then do the JavaScript. The reason I've done it this way is it means we just get the HTML out of the way, and then we can just enjoy the pure JavaScript together. So hopefully you've heard of rock, paper, scissors before. How the game is going to work is that the user will choose between rock, paper, or scissors. Okay, that's how it's going to work. And the user will also, the computer will also make a guess, and then we'll do a check to see who won, the computer or the user. So that's what we're going to do in this tutorial. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm actually going to just get rid of the JavaScript is awesome and just basically put in rock, paper, scissors. So we'll say rock, paper, scissors game. And we'll just change the title here to be, instead of JS series, we'll just say rock, paper, scissors. Okay. So if I just save and refresh, we now see here we get rock, paper, scissors and rock, paper, scissors game in very large writing. Now what I want to do is basically just have a heading 2, sorry, it was in capitals, heading 2, and this is just going to say player choice. Just save and refresh, just to make sure that's on the page. We have our player choice, and remember the computer is also going to have a choice as well. So we'll have a H2 for that. Computer choice. So now what we have is we have H2 for the player choice and for the computer choice. Obviously at some point after the user, I apologize, after the user has made a choice and the computer's made a choice, at some point we have to put the results of their choice onto the page. So we'll just do those in small paragraphs. And what we're going to do is just say, get ready for both of them. So I'll actually just copy that down here. So as I say, this tutorial is just the HTML setup. Sadly, no JavaScript in this tutorial. Okay, so we've rock, paper, scissors game, player choice, get ready, and computer choice, get ready. That's awesome. Then what we want to do is just have our buttons. So what we're going to do is we're going to have 3 buttons, one for rock, paper, and scissors. What I'll do as well, by the way, is I'm going to give each of these a class of choice button, and just copy that 2 more times. So we have rock, paper, scissors, and then just type in rock, paper, and scissors. And let's just have a look here. Okay, so we've rock, paper, scissors game, player choice, get ready, and the computer choice. What we'll do is let's just do some very quick styling for the choice button. So we'll go to the CSS file. And what we'll do is, what was the name of the choice button? Choice button. Okay, awesome. So we're just going to do a few things here. So we'll just give the buttons a bit of maybe width and height, maybe a background color, do a little bit of a border radius, that kind of thing. So what we'll do is, let's just give them all a width of maybe, we'll say 30 pixels. Hopefully that's not too much. 30 pixels. We'll do a height of maybe 20 pixels. Okay. Then what we'll do is just give them all a border radius of just maybe, we'll do 5%. And what we'll do is we'll do a background color. Similar to the last project, we'll just say aquamarine. And what we'll do is we'll just change the font weight to bold. But did we already do bold? Yes, we don't. Yeah, we'll do bold. They're in uppercase, but we'll make them bold. So for that, we can just say font weight bold. Font weight is bold. Anything else I want to do? We'll just give maybe the text a color of black. And hopefully this isn't too bad looking when we check. And maybe just a little margin, very basic. We'll just do like 5 pixels. So I have no idea what this is going to look like. Hopefully it's not awful. Oh, that is so bad. Okay, so my width and height is too small. Nowhere near enough. So we'll give maybe a width of 120 pixels. Let's have a look. Okay, and then maybe the height will do more like 40. That's better. Okay, rock, paper, scissors. I think I wouldn't mind adding maybe just a little bit more. Let's be really bold. Let's do 180 and let's go up to 60 there. And let's do a bit more border radius. Maybe we'll do like 9%. So let's just have a look. Okay, the border radius is a bit weak. Let's just go for a full 15%. Let's have a look here. Sorry about this now. Okay, I'll tell you what, it is what it is. So we've rock, paper, scissors game title, our player choice, get ready, computer choice, get ready. And then lastly, what we need to do is we're going to have some sort of result output. So we'll do that maybe just above the buttons. What do you think? So maybe we'll do a H2. So H2. And what we'll do is just give this an ID. I want the ID to be really descriptive. So we'll say it is the result output text. Result output text. Okay, and just save. And basically that's it. Okay, so we're ready to go. We have our very basic game of rock, paper, scissors. So we'll obviously have to set up the logic, listen out for user clicks, do a comparison, a check to see, what did the user select, what did the computer choose. We'll do random logic, not for the computer choice. Obviously, the player choice will be whatever button they press. So we need to have an event listener on those, and then we'll just do a comparison, using an if statement. So you might already be able to code this up yourself. I mean, hopefully you are based on what we've done in this course. You know that you're going to have to use the document object model to get the rock button, the paper button, the scissors button, and then basically listen out for the user click. So I'll show you all the logic now over the next few tutorials of how we're going to set this up. But essentially, this is an overview of our game. So I'll see you in the next tutorial, and we'll start the JavaScript coding for this. Okay, awesome. Okay, so this is the last tutorial for us to do to complete the rock, paper, scissors game. We see here if we click rock, paper, scissors, we can see the user choice being logged out of the console. But what we want to do now is let's just override this get ready text, the player choice. Okay, so if we go to the index.html file, we'll notice here we have this get ready paragraph, but it has a user choice text output ID. So if we go to the script file, we'll notice that user choice text output, we've actually got that. We've said document.getElementById, by ID, and we've stored it inside of user choice text. So when the user clicks on the button, rather than just essentially logging out the result to the console, in this case user choice, let's override the value of the user choice text with the user choice, okay, whatever the user actually selected. So how we do that is we can say user choice text, so we're selecting that paragraph, okay, and what we want to do is we want to change the inner text of that to be whatever the user chose. And we saw that whatever the user chose is stored in the variable user choice. So all we need to do is just assign that the value of user choice. So if I now save and refresh, if I click on rock, we see that has changed to rock. Okay, that's awesome. But we don't yet see the computer choice, which we can see here is scissors. So let's do the same thing. Well, the paragraph for the computer choice is here, and we've assigned that the ID of computer choice text output. And what we did is we've got that as well. We said document.getElementById, computer choice text output. So we use the document object model to store that in this variable computer choice text. So down here, let's just access that variable computer choice text output, and we will change the inner text of it to be whatever the computer choice was. And remember, computer choice is a variable here that we've defined. And what is the computer choice value? Well, computer choice basically is the value of whatever is returned by this function, generate computer choice. Generate computer choice generates a random number, and then depending on whether it's 1, 2, or 3, we get returned rock, paper, scissors. Okay? So if we now save and refresh, now if I click on rock, and okay, computer choice did not override. What happened there? That should work. Computer choice. It's called computer choice text. Apologies. My bad. I apologize about that. So let's try again. So computer choice text is what we call that variable up there. This is why I like to do it, write the code in incremental bit by bit. So now if we click rock, awesome. We see they both got rock, and that's awesome. Now we haven't done any logical check yet to see if, in this case, that would be a draw. So we need to set that up, get the result. Did the user win? Did the computer win? And then override the value here. So that's the next thing we're going to do. We're going to do a check to see who actually won. Well, what we can do is we can basically run that code here using an if statement. So the first thing we'll check for is actually the draw. So we can check to see if user choice is equal to the computer choice. So remember, user choice is what the user chose, that variable there, and computer choice is what the computer chose. And if that's the case, we can just basically say console.log draw. Okay? So that's going to be a draw if we get the same. I'll just see if I can get a draw here. Oh, we got a draw again. So that's awesome. But now what we want to do is whatever the result is, let's override the value of get ready there. So get ready, that paragraph has been assigned the value, the ID I should say, apologies, of result output text. So if we grab that using the document object model, which we did up here, we said document.getElement by ID, we stored it in the result output text. What we can do is set the inner text of that. So rather than logging out draw to the console, what we can do is we can take that variable result output text, okay? We can set the inner text of that and basically just set it to be draw. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to delete the console.log draw. What's happening now is if we actually get a draw, instead of just logging it out to the console, what's going to happen is we're going to basically say it was a draw there. So let me just save and refresh. So, okay, it was a draw again. Okay, awesome. Okay, so now we've set up the logic if it's a draw. Let's just check to see if the user won or if the computer won. So how we're going to do this as follows. We're going to use the else if, okay? And in each else if, we're going to check, first of all, did the user pick rock, paper, scissors, okay? So else if, we're going to say user choice is equal to rock. If that's the case, we're going to run some code. Sorry, that should be an else if, my apologies. Else if, then we have else if again, if the user choice was equal to rock, paper, scissors. Check for paper. We're going to run some code. Else if the user choice was equal to scissors, rock, paper, scissors, we're going to run some code. And what we can do inside of each of these is we can actually check to see who won using the ternary operator. So for example, if the user choice is rock, we can use the ternary operator to set the text output, okay? So what I mean by that is follows. First of all, we know with the ternary operator, we're checking to see, if some condition was true. So for example, how do we win if we're the user and we pick rock? Rock beats scissors. So let's check to see in this condition if the computer choice was scissors, okay? So we say computer choice. What we're doing now is we're going to use the ternary operator. We're going to say computer choice scissors. And then what we're going to do is we're going to use the ternary operator. So we're going to say question mark. Was the computer choice scissors? And what we know is that if that is true, we run this condition. And if it is false, we run that condition, okay? But instead of saying true, just like a random string, what we actually want to do is just change the result output text, that variable dot inner text. We want to change that to be that the user won. So we can say player wins. So what we're doing now is basically if the user chose rock and the computer chose scissors, we're saying that the player won. Otherwise, if the computer did not pick scissors, that was false. They must have picked paper. Paper beats rock, in which case actually the computer won. So what we can do is just basically copy that, paste it here, and just change that to be computer wins, okay? So we just got to complete the logic for all the different scenarios. So computer wins, okay? So let's do it now for paper. So again, we're going to check to see if the user won first. So computer choice is equal to, so if the user chose paper, how would they win? Well, they would win if the computer chose rock. So let's check to see if the computer chose rock, okay? And if that's the case, the user has won. So we'll change the result output.text.inner text to be the player wins. So let's do that there. However, if the computer did not actually pick rock, we know the computer has actually won because they must have picked scissors, and scissors beats paper. So the player lost. So we'll just copy and paste that in there, okay? And then lastly, let's just check to see if we chose scissors, if the user won, okay? So, or the player, I should say. So how we do that is we check to see. So remember, we're checking to see if the computer chose scissors, okay? And then if the computer chose rock. So now we want to check to see if they chose, let me see, rock, paper. Okay, so if they chose paper, then that means that we won. So computer choice paper, okay, question mark. Well, if the user chose scissors and the computer chose paper, then the user wins. So we can copy that code there, okay? Remember, it's a ternary operator, so we just have our colon there. However, if the user chose scissors, but the computer did not choose paper, okay, then the computer chose rock. Rock beats scissors, so actually the computer did in fact win in that time there. And let's just put our semicolons to end our statements. And computer choice needs to be equal to, apologies, strictly equal to paper. Okay, so let's now check to see what happens. So if I go rock, rock, paper, computer wins. Yeah, paper beats rock. Okay, so we lost. If we pick paper, computer won again because scissors beats paper. And if I click scissors, the player won because scissors beats paper. Okay, awesome. And what's really cool is if I click on rock, player choice is rock, paper, it's paper, scissors. So let's see if the computer wins. Scissors beats paper. Awesome. And then if you wanted, you could just stop logging out to the console the choice. So you could just delete that to clean up the code. And if you wanted, you could just add an else here, just basically saying console.log, no selection or something like that. So this is actually unreachable code. It's very bad practice what I'm doing here, but I always like to have an else at the end of the statement. Okay, so guys, I hope you enjoyed that tutorial. Over the last few tutorials, we saw how we could create a rock, paper, scissors game. How we did it essentially was we created our index.html file, and then in the script file, we wrote all of the logic. So really what we did is we just essentially listened out on the buttons for a user click. So choice buttons dot for each. We're listening out for a user click. The user clicks on it. Basically what we're doing is we're just basically seeing what the user chose. Then we're generating a computer choice. We're doing a comparison of that down here, and then just really updating the elements on the page just to reflect, what happened. Was the user choice rock? What was the computer choice? Was it a draw, or did someone win? Player wins, draw, computer wins. Awesome. Okay, I hope you enjoyed that tutorial. I'll see you in the next one for more JavaScript.